Jake Morrison moved his wheelchair slowly across the big viewing deck of Station Unity. He watched the bright stars through the huge glass window. 20 years had passed since the war with the blue aliens called Zephyrians ended. 20 years. Since that terrible day when the enemy's plasma gun hit him and damaged his spine forever. Now he could not walk or feel his legs at all. But something strange had happened during these 20 years. Jake had become close friends with the same aliens who had once tried to kill him and his fellow humans. It was hard to believe, but it was true. "You look sad again, Jake Morrison," said a soft voice behind him. Jake turned his wheelchair around and saw Kira walking toward him. She was a young Zephyrian with smooth blue skin that seemed to shine under the station's bright lights. Like all her people, she was tall and thin with long arms and legs. Her movements were smooth and graceful, like a dancer. Jake had known Kira for 5 years now. At first, she was just his work partner, helping him understand Zephyrian culture. But slowly, they had become real friends. It was not easy at first because they came from different worlds, but they found they had something important in common. Both had lost people they loved in the same big battle 20 years ago. "I was just thinking about the old war days," Jake said with a tired smile. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we had tried to talk to each other instead of fighting right away." Kira sat down in the chair next to him. Her big, dark eyes looked out at the stars. "Many of my people think about this too. The war hurt both humans and Zephyrians very badly." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "But maybe if we had not gone through that dark time, we would never have learned to understand each other like we do now." Jake nodded. He remembered when Kira first came to work with him 3 years after the peace treaty was signed. At that time, they only talked because it was their job. But as months passed, they found they liked talking to each other. They shared stories about their families and their homes. Jake told her about Earth and baseball and pizza. Kira told him about her planet's purple oceans and floating cities. The small computer screen on Jake's wheelchair suddenly made a loud beeping sound. Director Collins' worried face appeared on the screen. Collins was the boss of Station Unity, an older man with gray hair and deep lines on his face from years of hard work. "Jake, come to meeting room Alpha right now." "We have big trouble," Collins said in a serious voice. Jake quickly moved his wheelchair through the station's clean white hallways. In a few minutes, he was sitting at the big meeting table with all the important station officers. Director Collins stood at the front of the room next to Admiral Parker, a tough-looking woman who commanded the station's security forces. Behind them, a blue hologram showed maps of space and reports from different planets. "Everyone, we have a serious problem," Collins began. 3 hours ago, unknown attackers took over a Zephyrian science ship called Dawn's Promise. They captured all the crew members, including Dr. Zara Keth, who is one of the most important Zephyrian scientists. Jake felt his heart start beating faster when he heard that name. Dr. Zara Keth was not just any scientist. She was Kira's teacher, and the alien who had first said that humans and Zephyrians should be friends, not enemies. She was like a mother to Kira since Kira's real parents had died in the war. "What do these attackers want?" Jake asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Admiral Parker stepped forward with a dark look on her face. "They call themselves the Purist Coalition. The group has both human and Zephyrian members who hate the peace treaty. They want us to stop all the science projects that humans and Zephyrians work on together. They also want to divide space so that humans and Zephyrians never have to meet each other again." "What happens if we don't do what they want?" Jake asked. "They will kill all the prisoners," Collins said in a quiet voice. "They said they will start by killing Dr. Zara Keth in 72 hours. That gives us 3 days. Jake felt cold inside. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you know more about Zephyrian culture than any other human," Collins explained. "You have friends in their government. This coalition has spies in both human and Zephyrian organizations, so we cannot trust normal military rescue plans. We need someone who can work with both sides." Jake nodded, but his mind was already thinking about something else. Somewhere far away in space, Kira's beloved teacher was locked up by crazy people who wanted to destroy everything good that humans and Zephyrians had built together. Dr. Zara Keth had spent her whole life trying to bring peace between the two. species, and now she might die because of it. When the meeting ended, Jake rolled his wheelchair back to his small apartment on the station. The rooms were built for people who could walk, but over the years Jake had made changes so he could reach everything he needed. His bed could move up and down, his kitchen had low counters, and his computer desk was the right height for his wheelchair. Jake sat by his window and looked out at the stars again. 20 years ago, he had been a strong young Marine who could run fast and fight hard. He had joined the military to protect Earth from the alien invasion. Back then, he thought all Zephyrians were evil monsters who wanted to destroy humanity. The war had been terrible. Humans and Zephyrians fought each other on dozens of planets. Cities were destroyed, ships were blown up, and millions of people, on both sides, died. Jake had been in many battles, always fighting to push the aliens back and keep them away from Earth. Then came the Battle of Kepler Station, the fight that changed everything. Jake's unit was trying to defend an important human base when Zephyrian fighters attacked. During the battle, Jake had been running across an open area to help some wounded soldiers when an enemy plasma cannon hit him. The blast burned through his armor and damaged his spine so badly that he would never walk again. But Jake had not been the only one hurt that day. Later, he learned that a young Zephyrian girl named Kira had also lost something important in the same battle. Her parents, who were both Zephyrian soldiers, had died when human fighters destroyed their ship. Both Jake and Kira had paid a terrible price for a war that nobody really wanted. Now, as Jake sat in his wheelchair looking at the peaceful stars, he thought about how much things had changed. The war had ended with a peace treaty that surprised everyone. Instead of fighting until one side was completely destroyed, both humans and Zephyrians had decided they were tired of killing each other. Smart people on both sides realized that they were more alike than different. Dr. Zara Keth had been one of the most important voices for peace. She was the Zephyrian scientist who first said that humans and aliens should work together to solve problems instead of creating new ones. She had studied human culture and found that humans and Zephyrians wanted the same basic things: safe homes for their families, enough food to eat, and a chance for their children to have better lives. Jake picked up his communication device and tried to contact some of his Zephyrian friends in the government, but after 2 hours of calls, he had learned nothing helpful. The Purist Coalition had planned their attack very carefully. They had members working inside both human and Zephyrian organizations, so nobody knew who could be trusted. As the hours passed, Jake began to feel helpless. He was just one man in a wheelchair, trying to solve a problem that might start a new war between two species. How could he possibly save Dr. Zara Keth and the other prisoners when entire governments could not find a solution? But then Jake thought about Kira and how much Dr. Zara Keth meant to her. He remembered all the good things that had come from the peace between humans and Zephyrians. He thought about the joint science projects that were helping both species learn new things, the trade agreements that were making life better for everyone, and the friendships that had grown between former enemies. All of that would be destroyed if the Purist Coalition succeeded. The extremists wanted to drag both species back into the darkness of war and hatred. They wanted to tear apart everything that people like Dr. Zara Keth had worked so hard to build. Jake knew he had to try something, even if it seemed impossible. Somewhere in the cold darkness of space, a good person was counting down her last hours, and the future of two species hung in the balance. The peace that had cost so much blood and pain was about to be destroyed by fanatics who chose hate over hope. As Jake prepared for sleep, he made a silent promise. He would find a way to save Dr. Zara Keth, no matter what it cost him. The woman, who had taught two species to see each other as friends instead of enemies, deserved better than to die at the hands of those who profited from fear and division. The next day and night were terrible for Jake. He tried to contact many important people in the Zephyrian government, but none of his calls helped. Every person he talked to either could not help him or was too scared to get involved. The Purist Coalition had planned their attack very well. They had secret members working inside both human and Zephyrian organizations, so nobody knew who they could trust. Jake felt frustrated and worried as the hours passed. Time was running out for Dr. Zara Keth and the other prisoners. He needed to find a solution quickly, but all his normal diplomatic methods were failing. Finally, Jake decided to look for Kira. He found her sitting in the station's garden area, a peaceful place filled with plants from both Earth and the Zephyrian homeworld. There was a big earth oak tree in the center that had been planted as a symbol of friendship between the two species. Kira was sitting on a bench under this tree, but she did not look peaceful at all. When Jake rolled his wheelchair closer, he could see that Kira was very upset. Her usually calm face showed fear and sadness. Her big dark eyes were wet with tears that she was trying not to cry. "The Zephyrian Council had a meeting today," Kira said without looking at Jake. "They voted to stop all the science projects that humans and Zephyrians work on together. They think this will make the coalition happy and maybe the extremists will let the prisoners go." Jake moved his wheelchair next to the bench where Kira was sitting. "That won't work," he said firmly. "When you give crazy people what they want, they just ask for more. The coalition will see this as weakness and make bigger demands." Kira finally looked at Jake, and he could see how scared and hopeful she was at the same time. "There has to be something we can do, Jake. Dr. Zaraketh is not just my teacher. She is the only family I have left since my parents died in the war. I cannot lose her too." Jake reached out and took Kira's hand in his. Her skin felt cool and smooth, different from human skin but somehow comforting. "I know how important she is to you," Jake said gently. "She helped me understand your people when I was still angry about the war. Her research showed me that Zephyrians and humans are not so different after all." They sat quietly together for several minutes, both thinking about the woman who had brought them together and taught them to be friends. The garden around them was peaceful, with colorful flowers and the soft sound of water flowing in small streams. But the peace felt fragile, like it might break at any moment. Suddenly, Jake's communication device made a loud beeping sound. Dr. Lisa Hayes appeared on the small screen. She was the chief medical officer of Station Unity, a smart woman with short brown hair and kind eyes. But today, her eyes looked excited and a little crazy. "Jake, come to medical room 3 right now," Dr. Hayes said quickly. "I think I found an answer to your problem." Jake looked at Kira with confusion. "What problem is she talking about?" "I do not know," Kira replied. "But Dr. Hayes is very smart. Maybe she has an idea that can help us." Jake and Kira went to the medical section of the station. Medical room 3 was filled with complicated machines and computer screens showing pictures of the human body. Dr. Hayes was standing in front of several blue hologram displays that showed the human spine and brain. "I have been working on this project in secret for 2 years," Dr. Hayes began, speaking very fast because she was excited. "It is an experimental treatment to fix damaged spinal cords. I use human stem cells mixed with special growth chemicals from Zephyrian biology." Jake stared at the hologram pictures, trying to understand what he was seeing. The images showed how damaged nerve tissue could be repaired and regrown. "Are you saying you can fix my spine? You can make me walk again?" "Maybe," Dr. Hayes said. "The treatment is dangerous and I have never tried it on a real person before. But my computer models say there is a 60% chance it will work completely." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. For 20 years, he had accepted that he would never walk again. He had learned to live with his wheelchair and found ways to be useful even without his legs. But the idea of walking again was like a dream he had given up long ago. "But why are you telling me this now?" Jake asked. Dr. Hayes pointed to one of the hologram displays. "Because if the treatment works, you would be the perfect person to rescue Dr. Zaraketh and the other prisoners. You have diplomatic immunity, which means you can go places where normal soldiers cannot. You have military training from your time as a Marine, and your friendship with Kira means you understand Zephyrian culture better than any other human." Kira leaned forward, her eyes wide with worry and hope. "Jake, this sounds very dangerous. What if something goes wrong?" Jake looked at the medical displays, then at Kira's scared face, then back at Dr. Hayes. "What are the risks?" he asked. "The surgery takes 8 hours," Dr. Hayes explained. "After that, you would need intensive physical therapy to learn how to walk again. Your muscles have been weak for 20 years and your brain needs to remember how to control your legs. If we start right now, you might be ready for a mission in 2 days." Dr. Hayes paused and looked serious. "But Jake, you need to understand, Something important. Even if the surgery works, your new ability to walk might not last forever. Human and Zephyrian biology are different. Your body might reject the alien growth chemicals after a few weeks or months. Jake was quiet for a long moment, thinking about what this meant. He might get the chance to walk again, but only for a short time. And he would be risking his life to save people he cared about. "How much time do we have before the coalition kills the prisoners?" Jake asked. "Less than 48 hours, Doctor," Hayes replied. Jake looked at Kira again. She was watching him with tears in her eyes, hoping he would say yes, but also terrified that he might get hurt or die trying to help her. "Sometimes you have to take big risks for the people you care about," Jake said finally, "even when you do not know if everything will work out okay." "Jake, no," Kira said, grabbing his hand tightly. "This is too dangerous. I cannot lose you too." Jake squeezed her hand back. "Kira, 20 years ago I was a soldier who thought all Zephyrians were evil. Now, my best friend is a Zephyrian scientist, and I'm about to risk everything to save her teacher. That is not a coincidence. That is what friendship means." Dr. Hayes interrupted them gently. "Jake, if you are going to do this, we need to start the surgery immediately. Every hour we wait makes the rescue mission harder." Jake nodded and looked at Kira one more time. "When I wake up, I want to see you there, okay? I am going to need all the help I can get learning how to walk again." The next day and a half was like a strange dream for Jake. The surgery took many hours, during which Dr. Hayes and her team worked to rebuild his damaged spine using the new treatment that mixed human and Zephyrian medical science. Jake drifted in and out of sleep, sometimes having dreams where he was running and walking like he used to do 20 years ago. When Jake finally woke up completely, the first thing he felt was pain. Sharp, electric feelings were shooting down his back into his legs. But it was not just pain he felt. For the first time in 20 years, he could actually feel his legs again. Dr. Hayes was standing next to his hospital bed, watching several computer screens that showed his medical condition. She looked tired but happy. "The treatment worked," she said with a big smile. "Your spine is accepting the Zephyrian growth chemicals, and we can see that your damaged nerves are growing back together." Jake tried to move his toes, and he felt a rush of joy when they actually moved. "When can I try to walk?" "Your muscles are very weak after 20 years, Dr. Hayes explained. "Your brain also needs time to remember how to control your legs, but we do not have much time before the prisoner deadline. We have maybe 18 hours to get you ready." Jake tried to sit up in bed even though it hurt. "Then we better start right now. Dr. Zara Keth is counting on me, and I am not going to let her down." As Jake began the difficult process of learning to walk again, he thought about how strange life could be. Yesterday, he was a man in a wheelchair who felt helpless to save his friend's teacher. Today, he had legs that worked again and a chance to be a hero. But he also knew that this gift might not last forever, which made it even more precious. The clock was ticking, and somewhere far away in space, good people were waiting for someone to save them. Jake was determined to be that someone, even if it meant risking everything he had. The rehabilitation room had been quickly changed into a training area for Jake's mission. Exercise machines sat next to weapon training equipment, creating a strange place where Jake had to learn to walk again, while also preparing for a dangerous rescue operation. Lieutenant Amy Foster was the station's security chief, a tough woman with short red hair and sharp green eyes. She watched Jake practice shooting while Dr. Hayes monitored his medical readings on several computer screens. "Your skills with guns are still good," Foster said, as Jake hit target after target from a standing position. "But your balance is shaky. If you get into a real fight, that could get you killed." Jake gritted his teeth and forced himself through another set of walking exercises. His legs felt strange and unfamiliar, like they belonged to someone else. They were slow to respond when his brain told them to move. Every step required careful thought, and every turn was risky because he might fall. "The muscles in your legs are very weak," Dr. Hayes explained during a rest break. 20 years without use has made them like those of a small child. We are asking them to do too much too fast." Admiral Parker came into the training room carrying new intelligence reports. The Purist Coalition has moved the prisoners to an old mining facility in the Kepler system, she announced. Our spies tell us that both human and Zephyrian extremists are guarding the place. This means we cannot send normal soldiers because we do not know who we can trust. Kira entered the room carrying a case of special equipment. Her blue skin looked pale with worry, but her eyes were determined. I have convinced the Zephyrian Council to give you one of our diplomatic ships. The ship's computer has been programmed with the access codes for the mining facility. Jake stopped his balance training and looked at Kira seriously. You are not coming with me. Jake Morrison, my teacher, is being held by crazy people who want to destroy everything we have built together. You cannot expect me to stay here safely while you risk your life for our cause. Yes, I can, and I do, Jake said firmly. This mission is going to be dangerous enough without me having to worry about keeping you safe too. Kira's eyes flashed with anger. I am not helpless, Jake. I know the mining facility's layout. I speak both human and Zephyrian languages perfectly, and I understand the extremist mindset better than you do. And you are also the most important person in my life, Jake replied. If something happens to you, I will not be able to focus on the mission. Please, Kira, I need to know you are safe. Their argument was stopped by Dr. Hayes, who was looking at Jake's latest medical scans with a worried expression. Jake, we need to talk privately. There is something you need to know about your condition. Jake followed Dr. Hayes to a quiet corner of the room. What is wrong? The treatment is working, but there are problems, Dr. Hayes said quietly. Your body is starting to reject the Zephyrian biological components. Your immune system thinks they are foreign invaders and is trying to destroy them. Jake felt cold, fear in his stomach. What does that mean for me? It means the neural growth factors that are keeping your spinal cord working will not last forever. I can give you medicine to slow down the rejection, but only for a short time. You might have days or weeks of mobility, but probably not months. The room seemed to get very quiet as Jake understood what this meant. His miracle was temporary. His legs would work for a little while, but then they would stop working again. He was living on borrowed time. How long do I have? Jake asked. It is hard to say exactly. Maybe a week, maybe a month. The medicine will help, but your body will eventually win the fight against the alien biology. Jake was quiet for a long moment, thinking about this news. Then he looked at Kira, who was watching him with worried eyes from across the room. Then I better make this time count. How soon can we launch the mission? 6 hours later, Jake stood in the station's docking bay wearing black tactical armor that felt strange after 20 years of sitting in a wheelchair. His legs were steady under him, but he could feel the constant artificial signals keeping his nervous system working. It was like having a computer connected to his spine, helping his brain control his body. The Zephyrian diplomatic ship Knight's Dream waited in front of him. Unlike human ships, which were built with straight lines and sharp angles, this vessel had smooth, curved surfaces that looked almost alive. It was beautiful in an alien way that Jake was only now learning to appreciate. Kira approached carrying his final mission equipment. The ship's medical room has been stocked with neural stabilizers to help maintain your mobility during the mission. Jake attached the equipment to his armor, testing how the weight felt. Any last-minute information about the facility? Admiral Parker joined them. The mining complex has multiple levels built into an asteroid. Heat sensors suggest the prisoners are being held in the lower sections. You will have maybe 4 hours before Coalition reinforcements arrive from their other bases. Jake nodded and turned toward the ship. Then he stopped as Kira called his name. She walked over to him slowly, her large, dark eyes showing many emotions. Jake Morrison, in my language, we have a saying that means, may your steps find solid ground, and may your path lead to starlight. I wish this for you now. Jake reached out and took her cool hand in his warm one. Take care of yourself, Kira. When I get back, we are going to have a long talk about the future of human and Zephyrian cooperation. As Jake walked up the ramp into the ship, walked after 20 years of wheels and motors, he felt the weight of 2 entire species' hopes resting on his uncertain legs. The ship's artificial intelligence greeted him in musical Zephyrian tones as the bay doors closed behind him. Destination programmed, Jake Morrison. Estimated travel time to Kepler mining facility, 14 hours. Jake settled into the pilot's seat and felt the ship lift smoothly away from Station Unity. Through the viewport, he could see Kira watching from the observation deck. Her small figure grew smaller as they accelerated toward jump speed. During the long journey through space, Jake practiced walking in the ship's small corridor and reviewed the mission plans. The mining facility was built into a large asteroid, with many levels connected by elevators and maintenance tunnels. The Coalition had chosen it because it was isolated and easy to defend. Jake also thought about his life and how much it had changed. 20 years ago, he had been a young Marine who hated all aliens and wanted to destroy them. Now, he was risking his temporary mobility and probably his life to save an alien scientist who had become like family to his best friend. The universe had a strange sense of humor, Jake thought. Sometimes the greatest journeys were not about reaching new places, but about becoming a different person than you used to be. As the ship's computer announced they were approaching the Kepler system, Jake stood up and checked his equipment one final time. His legs felt strong, but he knew that feeling might not last. The medicine Dr. Hayes had given him would help for a while, but his body was already starting to reject the alien biology that made walking possible. This mission would take him back into the darkness of war. But this time he would not be fighting to destroy. This time, he would be fighting to save everything that mattered. And if his legs failed him in the process, at least he would fall while doing something worthwhile. The next phase of his journey would test everything he had learned about being human, about friendship, and about the kind of person he wanted to be. Jake Morrison, the man who had learned to walk again after 20 years, was ready to take his most important steps. The Kepler mining facility looked like a giant metal spider attached to the dark surface of a large asteroid. Its industrial buildings and towers marked human presence in this lifeless corner of space. Jake's diplomatic ship had passed through 3 security checkpoints without any problems. The Coalition extremists seemed confident that their political demands would prevent any rescue attempts. Jake stood in the ship's equipment room, checking his gear one last time. The neural stabilizers that Dr. Hayes had given him were already showing warning signs on his medical display. His mobility was getting worse faster than expected. He might have only a few hours of reliable movement left, maybe less. The facility's docking bay accepted his ship without question. Automated systems guided him to a parking spot near the main complex. As Jake left his ship, he could see Coalition guards at important positions around the area. Some were human, some were Zephyrian. Their mixed composition made this more than just a rescue mission. It was a test of whether 2 species could find peace even among their most extreme members. "Show me your identification," demanded a human guard as Jake approached the main entrance. The man wore the uniform of the old Earth Defense Forces, probably someone who had never accepted the peace treaty between humans and Zephyrians. "Diplomatic courier Jake Morrison," Jake replied, showing credentials that identified him as carrying sensitive materials for prisoner exchange. "I have authorization to inspect the facility's compliance with interspecies prisoner treatment protocols." The guard looked at the documents with suspicious eyes. Jake's diplomatic immunity made it legally difficult to arrest him, but the guard was clearly unhappy about letting him inside. After several minutes of talking to his superiors on his radio, Jake was allowed to enter the facility with an escort. The mining complex went deep into the asteroid's core. Its levels were connected by industrial elevators and maintenance tunnels. Jake's escort was an unfriendly ex-Marine named Pete Davis, who led him through security checkpoints while Jake carefully memorized the facility's layout. "Never seen a diplomat who walks like a soldier," Davis observed as they went down to the lower levels. "Former Marine Corps before I went into diplomatic service," Jake replied truthfully. Old habits are hard to break. They reached the detention level, where Jake could see the full size of the Coalition's operation. Almost 30 prisoners were being held in converted storage rooms, including not just Dr. Zara Keth, but also several other important peace advocates from both species. Jake's enhanced vision caught sight of Dr. Zara Keth in a room near the end of the corridor. The elderly Zephyrian scientist appeared unharmed but tired. Her usually bright blue skin was pale with stress, Seeing her made Jake more determined than ever. This woman had spent her whole life building bridges between species, and extremists from both sides wanted her dead for it. The inspection tour lasted 2 hours. During this time, Jake carefully noted guard positions, security procedures, and the facility's weak points. His legs were beginning to feel unreliable. Occasional tremors warned him that his borrowed mobility was fading. As his escort prepared to take him back to the upper levels, Jake made his move. He pretended to stumble and fall, which brought him close enough to Davis to disable the man's weapon and communication equipment. Within seconds, Jake had taken control of the guard's access codes and was moving toward the detention area. The next 20 minutes were controlled chaos. Jake's military training combined with desperate determination as he systematically disabled security systems and eliminated guards. His legs threatened to give out twice, forcing him to rely on upper body strength and smart positioning to maintain his advantage. The hardest moment came when he faced a Zephyrian extremist named Teth Var, a former military officer whose hatred of humans was as deep as any fanatic's. The aliens' enhanced reflexes and natural weapons made him a dangerous opponent, even for someone with full mobility. "You walk again to preserve the corruption of our species," Teth Var hissed as they circled each other in the corridor. Humanity is a disease that should never have been allowed to spread. Jake blocked the alien's clawed strike and countered with his tactical baton. Funny thing about diseases, sometimes they turn out to be helpful mutations. Their fight carried them through 2 corridors before Jake managed to defeat his opponent. But the effort left his legs nearly useless. He had to use the corridor walls for support as he made his way to the detention area. Dr. Zara Keth looked up with surprise as Jake entered her cell. "Jake Morrison, but how did you—" Her large eyes widened as she noticed his unsteady walk. "You are walking. Kira told me of your injury from the war." "Experimental treatment," Jake replied, working to override the cell's locking mechanism. "We need to move quickly. My mobility is not going to last much longer." The evacuation of 30 prisoners through a facility full of extremists should have been impossible. But Jake had learned something during his 20 years as a diplomat. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is not force, but the ability to inspire others to act for a good cause. As they moved through the facility's corridors, the rescued prisoners, both human and Zephyrian, began working together with surprising efficiency. Scientists and diplomats who had never held weapons found themselves covering corridors and disabling security systems. They were united by their shared commitment to peace. The final challenge came at the docking bay, where coalition reinforcements had arrived to block their escape route. Jake's legs finally gave out completely as he tried to provide covering fire, leaving him dependent on the people he had come to save. Dr. Zara Keth knelt beside him as energy weapons fired all around them. "Jake Morrison, you have given us the gift of mobility when we most needed it. Now let us carry you forward." What happened next became a legend in both human and Zephyrian history books. 30 rescued prisoners, working together despite species differences, fought their way to freedom while carrying the human who had saved them. Jake's diplomatic ship launched under heavy fire, but with all hostages safely aboard. The journey back to Station Unity took 18 hours. During this time, Jake's temporary mobility faded completely. Dr. Hayes was waiting in the medical bay as they docked, ready to begin the complex process of removing the failing neural enhancements. But it was Kira who was waiting in his hospital room when Jake woke up. Her eyes were bright with tears of relief and gratitude. "The Zephyrian Council has voted to expand joint research programs," she reported. "The Coalition's extremism has backfired. Both species are more committed to cooperation than ever before." Jake smiled from his hospital bed, feeling the familiar numbness returning to his legs. Sometimes you have to almost lose something to realize how much it is worth. Dr. Zara Keth entered the room, moving with the careful dignity of someone who had faced death and emerged stronger. "Jake Morrison, I have a proposal. The Zephyrian Science Council wishes to offer you a permanent position as cultural liaison for our neural research program. The work involves studying how different species process mobility and coordination," Kira added with a knowing smile. Your unique experience with both conditions could be invaluable to helping others. Jake thought about the offer, considering his journey from warrior to diplomat to temporary walker, and back again. His legs might be numb, but his spirit had never felt more alive. "I accept," he said. "But I have one condition. We do this research together, as true partners. If we are going to learn how to help others walk, we better make sure we are walking in the same direction." 6 months later, Jake rolled his wheelchair through the research facility that had been built as a joint human-Zephyrian project. His work with Dr. Zara Keth had led to breakthrough treatments for spinal injuries in both species. His friendship with Kira had become a model for interspecies cooperation that inspired others. He had walked for 3 days to save an alien, and in doing so, had helped 2 species take their first steps toward a shared future. Sometimes the greatest journeys were not measured in distance traveled, but in understanding gained and barriers overcome. As Jake watched human and Zephyrian researchers working side by side in the laboratory, he knew that some victories were not about personal achievements. They were about building bridges and creating hope for the future. He had learned to walk again, if only briefly, but more importantly, he had helped 2 species learn to walk together toward a better tomorrow. And that was a journey that would continue long after his own steps had ended.